You would think by now it had been, it's this one little thing has been beaten into them enough. Americans need the jobs. Americans are good workers. Americans are being sold out. And I'll get back to why Americans are better workers.
What is going on, guys? This is Tate Brown here, holding it down for Tim Pool. I've got a great interview with Ann Coulter. Obviously, you probably saw the Trump interview on Fox yesterday. Didn't go so great. The messaging wasn't there. Ann Coulter had a lot of thoughts on this interview, so stay tuned and check out her response. Well, first, I wanted to say I was taking a look at your new your Substack, Unsafe. Really tremendous stuff. Can you tell us a little more about it?
Yes, it's great. You get my column delivered directly to your inbox before everyone else can read it and rip it off. This week it's on something kind of tangentially related to what we're talking about. And that is I read all of Virginia Giuffre's book, Nobody's Girl. And it is so much more. She was one of the most vocal and articulate spokesmen of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. And it's shocking. It's really, really shocking, which I just finished it when I see the headline. Ghislaine Maxwell says new prison cell, fantastic. So you know, this is another great thing Trump is doing for his MAGA base, which I absolutely cannot understand. These emails that were released today. I mean, the Democrats are so desperate to tie Trump to Epstein. I don't think those are particularly implicating, but the fact that Trump refuses to rule out pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell. When you read, you don't have to read the book, read my column. It's going up later today, to see how intimately involved she was, not only in procuring the girls, but in the really disgusting molestation. And it was Trump's decision to move Ghislaine Maxwell to this minimum security prison where she's having such a wonderful time. I don't understand that. I mean, the assumption among I've been following this case since it first broke in Palm Beach, long before the national media had it. I did get Bill O'Reilly to talk about it, and that was it. This was back in 2006. But the assumption among people who have been following this is that it's not Trump, that young girls don't really seem to be his type, even back when he was a Democrat, but that it's his donors. But I don't know, this is to snub your nose on something this important to the MAGA base. I mean, I think as a lot of people have been saying, including Tim Pool, this is so going to destroy Republicans in the midterms. Now let's get to what we're really talking about.
Right. Well, no, yeah. I mean, it's true. It's a lot of this. You're just seeing people, the vitriol from the base. And it's just, there does seem to it feels like there's a bit of a distance from the admin officials and the base, which didn't seem to always be there, especially in like campaigns. It seems like the Trump administration or the Trump campaign is super reactive to the base. And then as soon as we get into office, a bit of a gulf erupts. Now, I gotta say I'm a huge fan. I've never done this before on an interview. I'm a huge fan. My family was like so excited that you're coming on. So Yay. I'm glad we got you, because this story, I couldn't think of anyone better than Ann Coulter to break down. I wanted to ask, before we get into the meat and cheese here, with the coming from media background, a lot of people were saying the Laura Ingraham interview was like a bit of a hit. They were saying, oh, well, she set him up with some of the questions, or maybe it was adversarial. I mean, did you get that sense at all? I mean, I'm sure you have a relationship with Laura, but I don't know.
No, my sense is more that expectations for Fox News hosts are so low, are so unbelievably low. I mean, one of the things I was going to say about this is we've been having to reel Trump back on this from 2015. He was constantly going out, and this is when there were like 3 people working for him. It was, me secretly sending things into Corey Lewandowski and Stephen Miller. And you could get him to turn the stuff around pretty quickly. Like you say, the campaign was much more, he needed our votes back then. But he was constantly, wandering off the reservation, talking about, and we need workers out in Silicon Valley and, hospitality. They need workers. They need workers. And then you'd have to reel them back right before, and this is right back to Fox News. Right before my book came out, In Trump We Trust. It was in 2016. It was the year before Adios America, about immigration. That got me banned from all media because it was about immigration, everything everyone's saying now. right before In Trump We Trust came out, literally that day, uh, Trump was being interviewed by Hannity at the border, and I forget exactly which part of this he came out for, but I think he said he would consider amnesty and he'd do a trade on amnesty. This
Mm,
is when he's still running for office in
yeah.
2016. And during some of the Republican debates, he started talking about how, oh, we need workers, and then he'd have to, and his campaign would put out a press release clarifying, i.e., taking back everything he said. So he's always been very soft on this. You would think by now it had been it's this one little thing has been beaten into him enough. Americans need the jobs. Americans are good workers. Americans
Mhm.
are being sold out. And I'll get back to why Americans are better workers. But for now, I wanted to say I spoke at Institute for ISI. No, Intercollegiate Studies
Right.
Institute. I always
Yeah.
want to start with
Yeah.
Institute, which is right near you guys. Anyway, it was this weekend. It was all these student journalists, and the gal from Stanford was particularly interested in why Trump wasn't cutting back on Chinese students. And she told me the Stanford campus is at least 30% Chinese nationals.
Mm.
And all these American students at Stanford University, one of our premier universities, majoring in computer science, they can't get jobs. They're being undersold
Mhm.
by the H-1B workers. And their theory, and I don't know enough about this to know whether it's true, but I don't know, a Stanford undergrad is smarter than I am. They think it's because Trump is worried about the rare earth minerals we need from China.
Mm.
Now, if true, I think he ought to get that message out through the grapevine.
Right. Yeah.
Get people talk. So people like you and I was, oh, that's just about rare earth minerals, and we won't be furious with him.
Right.
The reason H-1B workers are so attractive to corporations is not because they're better, it's because they are cheaper.
Yeah.
And I recommend Norman Matloff. He was a professor at one of those California universities in computer science for a long time, and he's written endlessly about this. The point is, H-1B workers get attached to a corporation. So it's indentured servitude,
Yeah.
which this country outlawed back at the time after the Civil War. And that is so you're hired to work for Apple, say. They underpay you, and you can get a much better job working for a competitor. They'll pay you more, it'll be a better job. But you can't leave without losing your H-1B visa.
Mhm.
Therefore, all these H-1B visa workers are doing ordinary, regular, nothing special work,
Yeah.
but they're cheap.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember this was the whole brouhaha around last Christmas where, a few figures on the right were coming out and saying like, oh, Americans are lazy and it's like intrinsic in our culture, which is just ridiculous because I'm like, we can look up on the moon and see a flag up there. It's our flag. So that being said, let's just say we grant, like Besant came out this morning. He was saying, look, we have a few different industries that obviously haven't been onshore in a very long time. So we need to bring in some experts to train the local workers on how to get this done, which I reject wholeheartedly. But let's even grant that. Let's just, for the sake of argument, let's grant that. My question is, how do we guarantee the workers are compliant with H-1B standards? Because go back to December, everyone was posting all these listings from like public databases showing that we were bringing in like hundreds of thousands of workers from India to work like janitor gigs. Like it was absolutely ridiculous, the amount of scamming going on. So I'm like, look, first of all, I hate the taste of turmeric, so I don't even know if I want them here anyway, even if it were like, like monster workers. But there's like scams left and right, and it's India, so I mean, go figure. But there's like, it's just ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous.
Yes, no, that is a great point. And by the way, who was it who was calling Americans lazy? Vivek Ramaswamy. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
It was Elon pushing for the cheap workers. The scam point you mentioned, I think, is very important. It turns out, I don't know if you've noticed this, but a lot of these alleged, massive scientific breakthroughs in the papers. No, the Chinese and the Indians openly cheat.
Yeah,
There
literally.
are photos of them crawling out of windows to like pass the answers to someone. We live in we used to, I hope we can get it back. America is a very traditionally a high trust society.
Mhm.
And when you're look at the scores this person got on these tests. Yeah,
Right.
well, the odds are they're probably cheating.
Right.
It's funny that Besant said that because, or Besant, sorry for mispronouncing his name. I like him because there it is. Another example of Trump goes out and says something stupid about bringing in foreign workers, and everybody around him has to rush out. And well, what he meant was,
Right.
But you're right. Will they go back? And you also reminded me one. Among the many ways H-1B workers harm Americans, it is, of course, taking American jobs. All these American kids are told, major in a STEM field, major in computer science, major in mathematics. Oh, you'll be set for life. That's so great. And then, oh, sorry, your job went to an Indian, a low-priced Indian. But
Right.
also, the Indians and the Chinese and the H-1B workers come in, and then they bring their elderly parents so they
Right.
can instantly go on Social Security. They
Yeah.
can bring the whole village in,
Hmm.
whom you'll be paying for, America.
Yeah. I think we've like invented new castes of Indians just in America alone, like in Silicon Valley. I mean, like, for example, and I totally agree with your prior point where like Besant, yeah, like they have to come out and kind of smooth over everything. And then we can talk about Gnome's comments later, obviously.
Oh.
But like to your point with the H-1B, it's like, okay, yes, they're taking jobs, but they're also, and this is a very valid concern to have, is they're changing our communities. I mean, there's all across the United States. I grew up outside of Memphis, Tennessee, a very American place. It's primarily black and white. It's been that way for its entire existence. The suburb I grew up in, I was looking at the elementary school I was zoned to, and FedEx is headquartered right outside of this school. So FedEx has brought in all these H-1B workers. They're battery farming, like Indians, basically. And the demographics of this elementary school have radically swung from primarily being a black and white school to like 80% Asian. And if you break that down, it's mostly South Asians. And so it's like, yeah, the jobs, taking the jobs is, I think, the primary concern, obviously, because that impacts people directly. But even the changing, like the demographic changing of some of these communities that are like around these major headquarters, that's a very valid concern as well. And that's not being addressed as much.
Yes, yes. Well, that's pretty much the theme of my book, Adios America. People will talk about these other things, Americans losing jobs, the welfare. They never really talked about the child rape. But no, I mean, we're allowed to, not only is our culture objectively better
Right.
than every other culture and country around the world, it works, it glistens, we are the freest country in the world. No other country comes close. Everyone we bring in makes us less free, makes our culture different, makes us less of a high trust society.
Yeah.
You can take in little bits of immigrants. It's like, putting a spice on a meal. You have a nice filet mignon, put a little salt on it. But if all you're getting is a huge chunk of salt,
Right. Yeah.
that's not the same recipe. And it absolutely changes our culture. When we're talking about, some little pissant culture in the middle of the ocean where they're still running around in loincloths and haven't invented the wheel. Oh, be careful. Don't interrupt the indigenous culture. We must protect it. Okay, we've got the best culture in the world, and we're not allowed to protect our culture?
Yeah.
No, I'm totally with you. It is the culture that's being changed. But it's to satisfy the big donors who want the cheap labor. I mean, think of this. This has been a problem in our country since the beginning. Some people's need for slave labor.
Yeah.
And that worked out great last time.
Literally. Yeah. Well, and then like now with the current situation, all this is like secondary to it, the big issue here, which is birthright citizenship. And this isn't being discussed as well. And it's like, that's okay. Again, let's just grant Besant's argument. Let's just grant it. Let's say it's a totally valid. We need all these workers in. And let's just even say we can guarantee compliance. Let's say they're all coming here, they're filing all their paperwork, and they're leaving when they're supposed to. If they pop a kid out here, they're here forever. They're now part of America in perpetuity. There's no way to like get them out. So it's like, this is down. There's so many layers to this. We're getting hit on every level. I mean, it's just insane. And then that goes
birthright citizenship. And I insist on calling it anchor babies and not birthright. But I mean, not just because it's more descriptive. It's one thing to say legal immigrants here who have not yet been naturalized, but we looked them over, we admitted them. We want them to be our fellow citizens. It's one thing to say, if they drop a baby, that baby is an American citizen.
Sure.
It is another thing entirely to say an 8-month, pregnant Mexican lady runs across the border, evades, border patrol. Ha ha, I dropped a baby. You can't throw me out. I mean, it's preposterous that this is what our founders, our framers were thinking about of the 14th Amendment right after the Civil War.
Literally, yeah.
14th Amendment was about freed slaves. That's all it was about. The Supreme Court has held that over and over again. Constitutionally, legally, it is preposterous to apply that to illegal aliens. It is apparently going to go before the Supreme Court. I hope they follow the law and not, it's been around for a while. We don't want to upset expectations. But it is at least true that Congress and the president could absolutely pass a law and say, this is not what the 14th Amendment means. And the president, as long as he is president, could use an executive order to do that. One other thing on the anchor babies, don't be fooled by studies claiming more Americans are on welfare, more Americans are accepting SNAP benefits. Oh, no. Overwhelmingly immigrant-headed households, illegal immigrant-headed households, most of all, are massive consumers of welfare, but they say, but it's for the baby, the anchor baby. They just dropped.
Right. Yeah, it's information from CIS, Center for Immigration Studies. They do great work, and the data they use is from the government. So they always get, it's like all they're doing is just filtering it so you can read it. And
yes.
The data they put out, 56% of foreign-born led households are on some form of welfare, whatever that is, versus I think it was about 43% of Native Americans. So it's like the whole argument that like immigration is our strength for like, insert reason here. You just look at that one data point and it just completely falls apart right in front of your very eyes. I mean, it's absolutely insane. And I want to take that and pivot into Kirsty Noem's comments this morning. Was absolutely insane. I'm sure you got a good look at it. The audience we discussed it early in the show. For those who didn't see it, the base is obviously like crashing out over this. They're PO'd for good reason. They're saying, Trump, we need an explanation. Like, what is this? And Kirsty Noem's like, you know what the base wants to hear right now? Guys, I have good news. They're not illegal. We naturalized all of them. Absolutely insane.
No, the explanation is Kristi Noem is a bimbo. She was absolutely the cabinet nominee I vociferously opposed. The rest of them I either didn't have an opinion on, some I wasn't wild about, but then, okay, that hearing was okay. Some I really loved, but Kristi Noem, huge mistake. Very stupid, should be removed from the role. And I mean, this is what Republicans were dealing with until Adios America came along. This legal, good, illegal, bad. I mean, it's this instinct they have to be nice to, I don't know, their grandfathers who immigrated from Scandinavia or Ireland. No, that's so not what we're talking about. Since 1970, about 90% of legal immigrants come from the third world. Yeah. It's basically indistinguishable from illegal immigrants. But I remember when Trump was running for president in 2016, he was the only Republican president. I mean, until Santorum got blown away, got like 1% in Iowa. So I'm not counting Santorum. Of the 16 who remained, Trump was the only Republican who did not support amnesty. That's where our party was. Yeah. It's stunning to think of that. So this naturalize them, and that's what we need. That was Ted Cruz's way of being for amnesty. His plan was, okay, they won't come in illegally, but we'll bring in just as many legally. Right. This is kind of defeating the point. I mean, that's why I talk about changing our entire culture. You can't be bringing them in by the million where they live together in little ethnic ghettos, as we're seeing right now out in Minnesota. It's the opposite of assimilation. But man, Kristi Noem, that's fantastic. Good job. So you're nationalizing them so that Gavin Newsom will have even more voters next year or 3 years when he's running against J.D. Vance. Fantastic, Kristi.
Yeah. It's just like, Yeah. Oh, it's not a problem anymore. Now I've filed some paperwork. They're good. Which this is the problem with this class of conservatives that's still around. They're still very present, and obviously here they're flexing their muscles. Is they just divide the world between Americans and future Americans, and there's nothing actually distinctive about being an American. And this was one of the last things Charlie Kirk sort of posed to the American people, and specifically to the conservative movement. One of the last questions he asked. I mean, you can go look on his Twitter. One of the last questions he asked is, "What is an American?" Like, if we're gonna, build out this deportation, infrastructure, and we're gonna tighten our borders up, and we're gonna like sort of reconstitute how we bring immigrants into the country, the question that needs to be answered is, what is an American? Is it paperwork? Like, that seems to be what Kirsty Noem's suggesting. And she's like, don't worry, we did some paperwork. They're good now. And yeah, the base obviously is clued in here, but I mean, I want to ask you that question. What is an American?
Two things. One is I was amazed, well, about many things after Charlie Kirk's assassination, but one is I hadn't really watched him for a while. I couldn't believe how great he had gotten on every single issue.
Yeah.
He was not always like that. He banned me from TPUSA because of my position on immigration.
Yeah.
And wow, did he come around. So he was fantastic toward the end. I had no idea how great he had become. On What is an American, I strongly recommend all your viewers read the book by the great Harvard professor, I think he's passed away now, Samuel Huntington, called Who Are We?
Yeah.
I cite it extensively in my book, Adios America. But yeah, he's a smart guy who said it's more than paperwork. And one of the points he makes, which I think is quite clever, he says, what if America had been colonized by the French? Would we be a different country? Well, no, we'd be Canada. What if America were colonized by the Spanish? No, then we would be Latin America. It is the specific culture brought to us by the greatest culture in the world, the British Isles. And the sun never sets on the British Empire. It just turns out we're the colony that did the best.
Yeah. So be it. Well, yeah, they sent over all the patriots. That's how it goes. Also, they made this argument with, I don't know if you've heard this with the English women, is that all the best ones came to America and Australia. That's why, anyway, I digress.
No, it's true. That's what de Tocqueville wrote, because he said back in London, they're all fainting of the vapors and giving tea to one another. Whereas American women, they were willing to, saddle up and conquer the frontier with their men. And that's why he said American women had such strong backbone and were so much preferable to European women.
It's the best, man. American women are the best. They're just fantastic, and we don't need the H-1B amount. We're good. We got it. I guess kind of back to the Trump thing. So there's been obviously huge vitriol, I would say, within the base, but then even within this broader sort of vaguely right-wing movement. Obviously, there's like the podcast bros, these sorts of people that have kind of piled in once they saw which way the wind was blowing coming into this last election. Some people, I feel like, look, with Trump, I think the utility of Trump has always been that he consistently moves the football down the field. Like you talked about in 2016, all these people wanted mass amnesty, da-da-da-da-da-da. Now mass deportations are at least on the table, and that's primarily because of Donald Trump. But you have a lot of people that are trying to, it seems like, just call it like MAGA dead in the water, saying, oh, MAGA's dead. Some people are saying, oh, this is just Biden with a stronger border, these sorts of things. I don't know. I still feel like Trump is still a viable. I think if people, I don't know if you've heard use the term chimp out. I think if the base chimps out enough, you can sort of steer Trump in the right direction, because at least it seems like the admin is in some way responsive to the base.
Yes. Well, take it from me. Trump can betray you. That isn't the end of MAGA. He betrayed us on the wall, on the deportations and DACA, and I tried to betray us on amnesty. Really pretty spectacularly, term one. And I started, as you just said, sort of gently giving him constructive criticism, like showing up in the Oval Office and screaming at him for 15 minutes. And then I just gave up after he signed his third spending bill with no wall funding. He's been fantastic so far, but I mean, the most important point is MAGA doesn't die. MAGA is the winning formula. Any Republican who takes that formula will do well. I mean, I suppose unless they have some horribly embarrassing scandal, like being stupid like Christina. Um, but MAGA doesn't die, and that is what part of what really needs to be preserved. I think JD Vance is absolutely true blue MAGA.
Mhm.
There are a few others. Marco Rubio is another one who's
Yeah.
completely flipped.
Real. Yeah.
He's like a joke figure in my book Adios America. Man, has he come around.
Yeah.
So MAGA is alive and well, and I think the base does need to put pressure on Trump. I mean, for
Mhm.
one thing, I'll give you an example of when I think MAGA pressure worked. I think a lot of the base, I was among them, did not want us to strike Iran.
Mm.
That was back this summer.
Right.
And, because we were just worried, "Oh, okay, we strike them, then we have troops, and then they attack the troops, and then, oh my gosh, but then now they're firing on Americans, and there we are involved in another ground war." But I think you can't run the experiment twice, but I think it was because of the MAGA pushback, including from Charlie Kirk,
Yeah.
and I think Steve Bannon,
Mhm.
um, it was just the strike, and that's it.
Yeah.
So, okay, fine,
Yeah.
fine. You didn't get us involved in a ground war. And in the past, it has been the base that has it's reeled Trump back in from telling us how wonderful the dreamers are.
Yeah.
And let's go. We're going to get some of these wonderful kids. And by the way, you look at them standing there, they're all obese and unattractive. No, these aren't wonderful people. Send them home.
Yeah. Oh man, it's they're not sending their best. It's like the truest thing he ever said.
Or worse than that, what if they are sending their best?
It would explain a lot, that's for sure. It would explain like the entire
Their
third
countries.
world. Yeah. The one thing I'm sort of before I like fully, because a lot of people are coming unglued on, specifically on Twitter, and a lot of it's a valid crash. And I'll concede that. I'm still waiting for Stephen Miller to weigh in because, from my perspective, he seems to be the guy that has the sort of clearest understanding of the immigration issue and where it's gotten us. I mean, maybe you could explain Stephen Miller's role, because it seems like his role has really expanded in this second term.
Thank God. Yes, I totally agree. When I get depressed, I just fantasize about a Stephen Miller presidency someday. No, thank God he's there. And I mean, I almost don't want to praise him too much because, Trump can get his feelings hurt. He might get jealous and get rid of Miller. So
Yeah.
no, it's all you, sir. We couldn't do it without you. No, we really couldn't do it without him. I mean, he does have a very strong presence and everything, but
Yeah.
it's comforting to know that Stephen Miller is there, and it's very important that Trump listened to Stephen Miller and not to the people who give him advice when everything goes to crap. I mean, it was Jared Kushner's advice to fire Comey.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to love it. Liberals will love that.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And at least according to reporting I've heard in New York, he was assuring people in 2016, no, Trump's not going to build a wall. So I don't know, compare what happens when you take Stephen Miller's advice. Good things happen. Flowers come up. You win elections.
Yeah.
To what happens when you listen to other people's advice. Is it Lutnick, by the way? I've heard people say it's Lutnick who's pushing for the H-1B visas. I have no idea. I know you're interviewing me, but I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I've heard Lutnick, and same thing with the 50-year mortgage proposal. They're saying Pulte is kind of behind that. So you have these like these like guys that are just like, I don't know, like settling scores behind the scenes, and it's strangest behavior.
Well, that 50-year mortgage, this is an example. I could write a book about this. Every problem gets easier if it's not entirely solved just by dealing with immigration.
Yes.
Just by throwing out illegals, just by not admitting a bunch of poor, dysfunctional people from the most disparate cultures imaginable to ours, don't speak English. I mean, the money just being wasted on the translators in court, on the arrests, the crime, the jails, the English as a second language classes, and we're not even getting to the welfare benefits and the food stamps and the housing aid. And oh my gosh, they're all getting Obamacare. Okay, just that gives us so much money.
Mm-hmm.
And on housing, I mean, throw a problem at me and I'll tell you why immigration makes it better. You get rid of all these immigrants, who either committed fraud on their legal immigration applicants, like, oh, for example, Ilhan Omar,
Yeah.
and all of the illegals. And wow, a lot of housing opens up.
Yeah. Like half of New York City, uh, like right away, like the world's most expensive city becomes pretty affordable. Like it used to be
Yes.
when Trump was growing up, you could like buy a house in Queens that wasn't unreasonable. And then now, because like the entire world's piled in there, you have like 8 Guyanese people piled into a 2-bedroom house. It's just like completely. Stephen Miller gets it. I've always maintained, there's a lot of people on the right that are expressing concern over rising anti-Semitism. I think Stephen Miller's the anecdote. He's turned me into a full-blown philo-Semite. I love Stephen Miller so much. He's so good. But
I know. So good when you got one on your side.
well, and
I choose.
we're running low on time. Thank you so much for taking the time. I don't know if you have any final thoughts and where people know where to find you, but where they could find you.
And Coulter.substack.com. You get a column, a video, and a podcast every week, and sometimes just random little jokes I send out.
I love it. Thank you so much, Ann. This has been such a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right. See you later. All right, guys. Well, that was the Ann Coulter. That was so fun. She's fantastic. Unfortunately, it was for a grim reason, which is like everything that's been going on with Trump and Kirsty Noem specifically. I'm glad she said it because I don't know if I'm allowed to say some of those things. So it's very fantastic. With that, we will be back tonight for Timcast IRL at 8 p.m. This interview will be up on the Culture War at 4 p.m. In case you missed it. Fantastic stuff. You can follow me, your host, Tate Brown, on X and Instagram at RealTateBrown. Come give me a follow. Come hang out. And like I said, Timcast IRL 8 p.m. We will see you all there. Thank you very much.